Are you a physician looking to take your own profitable medical expert witness practice to the next level? MedicalExpertWitness.com is the ultimate program to learn how to brand yourself as an expert witness and get yourself seen. Sure, building a reputation in the field from scratch has its challenges, but don't let them hold you back. MedicalExpertWitness.com understands what you are facing as they were once there too. In fact, 10 years ago, CEO Dr. Jordan Romano started his own consulting in the medical malpractice space. This experience has included providing expert witness testimony, reviewing medical records, and analyzing complex medical cases. Dr. Romano has become well-versed in the intricacies of medical malpractice law and has worked on cases for both plaintiffs and defendants in nearly every state in the U.S. And now, his company provides medical professionals with the tools and support they need to supercharge their career as a medical expert witness. Sounds great, doesn't it? Absolutely. Just imagine having the support you need to brand yourself as a medical witness expert too. Now that's powerful. So what are you waiting for? Visit medicalwitness.com today and gain access to a mentor who can connect you with attorneys in need for your specialized knowledge, expand your network, find new cases, and watch your business thrive. Whether you're a fellow virtual reality enthusiast, working in law enforcement, have taken my training, or simply interested in the ways that technology can be used to make the world a safer place, I'm excited to share my knowledge and passion with you. I'm Roger Ryan Ryder. Welcome to the Virtual Reality Reconstructionist podcast, where we explore the interaction of cutting-edge technology and the important work of crash reconstruction. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. This episode of the Virtual Reality Reconstructionist will focus on the reconstructing the crime scene with 3D scanners. When public safety has a crime scene, the objective of a police officer, crime scene investigator, arson investigator, or crash reconstructionist is to document the scene. This documentation consists of sketches, photographs, scans, and reports. In documenting the scene, investigators are gathering information and data on locations to further the reconstruction of the incident. By reconstructing the scene in a digital 3D format, we make numerous options available to understanding what happened. 3D scanning can provide a scaled map of the scene with millimeter accuracy. This is well beyond the hand measuring standard of within a half-inch accuracy we're used to. So let's understand the 3D scanning world as we've talked about before. It provides 3D scanning or terrestrial laser scanning, which I'll refer to as TLS commonly, is a form of 3D scanning in which tripod-mounted laser scanner captures large objects and environments. The technique is widely used in construction, surveying, and in this podcast, will focus on public safety forensic applications. Public safety currently uses TLS systems to document crashes and crime scenes. This allows the scenes to be measured in millimeter accuracy. Beyond the accuracy, the gathering data can be used to further forensic investigation of vehicle speed, vehicle damage, evidence location, blood spatter origin, or bullet trajectory studies. If we look at different methods here, a tripod-mounted scanner is just one of those approaches that public safety forensics can use. Handheld scanners, digital photography, and cell phones are now being used to document scenes. A handheld scanner is typically used for smaller settings so that the operator can move around the area to be documented. A handheld scanner can also be used to supplement a tripod scanner for hard-to-get-to places, bodies, or small crime scenes. Photogrammetry continues to evolve and has become a strong competitor in the 3D digital world. So if we look at the benefits of the forensic investigations, there are benefits when 3D scanners are deployed to document crash and crime scenes. We will discuss two of those today. The first benefit that comes in mind is improving the on-site measurement accuracy. A second benefit is that the digital format that is captured can be utilized to conduct blood spatter studies, trajectory studies, witness perspectives, speed analysis, evidence-based animations, and even a driver's perspective while driving. An example not mentioned is the ability to do crush analysis with a vehicle. In crash reconstruction, a crush analysis can be done, which measures the amount of damage to a vehicle, and this damage is converted into energy to obtain equivalent barrier speed. Before 3D scanners, these measurements were done with a mechanical jig that allowed the investigator to measure the damage from where the bumper was before the collision to where the damage was after the impact. These measurements, along with other known stiffness factors of the vehicle, are used to determine the barrier velocity of the damaged vehicle. This process can take hours when you consider the jig setup time, taking the measurements, and taking down time. Using digital data from 3D scanners, this process can be reduced to less than an hour with millimeter accuracy on the measurements. So let's look at applications of 3D scanners in crime scene reconstruction. So capturing and preserving the crime scene, a primary application of TLS systems is documenting crime scenes. The focus here is the measurement of the scene. Millimeter accuracy can now be obtained to locate evidentiary items. Primary items such as weapons can be easily measured in a location from reference points on the scene. These measurements can later be used to show where things were found. Body documentation can be done to further the investigation in incidents where the position of the body's hands and feet may be key elements in interpreting what happened during a crime. Details in the crime scene, such as blood spatter, can be documented with a TLS system. Combining the cloud data and the high-definition photographs, a detailed investigation of the blood spatter origin can be done for the investigation. A powerful component of 3D scanners is documenting locations of bullet defects at a crime scene. With the bullet defects and trajectory rods, a reconstruction of where the rounds were shot from can be determined. This visual application is paramount to explain to investigators and later jurors how the events happened on the incident scene itself. As the use of 3D scanners in public safety advances, creating virtual replicas will start to surface. 3D reconstruction of crime scenes has been in both civil and criminal courts. This will continue to grow. I have recently seen a virtual reality application designed for civil court trials. A 3D scan of a crime scene was used to develop the incident scene to scale. The Unity game engine was used to place the people involved in the incident where they were during the incident. Their positions were verified and identified using body cameras. This type of application was helpful and allowed the jury to put on VR headsets and see what each officer involved in the incident could see and relate the visual with the testimony to understand their decision. This is a step toward what is capable of documenting crash and crime scenes in 3D digital format. This is one example the digital documentation of crash and crime scenes is capable of providing. Another feature is enhancing evidence documentation with 3D data by integrating high-definition photography and documents into the data to create a completely immersive depiction of the incident. An example would be when a weapon is used in a crime, and said weapon is documented on the project scan to locate the evidence. Additional close-up pictures for the firearm can be added to the scene data for later investigation and attorneys to view such items in one project. This keeps them from using multiple formats or even programs to understand a crime scene. The resulting reports of the incident can also be imported into data to complete. The resulting reports on the incident can also be imported into the data to complete the incident and have all documentation available in one location as a whole. So supporting forensic analysis is paramount in 3D scanning of crime scenes. Even though personnel using 3D scanners may not know how to further an investigation on, say, blood spatter, crush, or bullet trajectories, They can document the scene with best practices, and experts can be retained after to use the data for analysis and reconstruction. So, as we also presenting evidence in courts is the last step of the process, we're currently working in a slow motion, changing the court systems to better understand and accept digital evidence in the making process. It could be faster. We should always remember that a TLS system primarily measures a scene, but due to its data collection, it is compelling to assist in creating courtroom visuals. A jury will better comprehend visual presentation to tell a story or describe a process. It is also influential in combining a presentation with visuals to make specific points in a case. You must also know your TLS data and how it can be authenticated for courtroom presentation. Hashing is a common form of authentication in court. The expert presenting the data will also use the data measurements in a court presentation. Their knowledge of the process, the validity of the data, and reliability are a must in allowing the presentation in court and holding them up for scrutiny. It has also been suggested that experts presenting digital 3D data prepare extensively for court, such as making sure equipment is available to display the data, rehearsing a presentation, and making all efforts to alleviate any courtroom surprises. So, process of reconstructing crime scenes with 3D scanning. Let's talk about data acquisition. It's done with the device you have chosen to use in the field. Using a TLS system would consist of gathering the scanner and supporting accessories. Upon arrival on the scene, a walkthrough of the scene itself, it is now time to complete a field sketch. This is a crucial component, for it is the foundation the operator will build on through the entire acquisition process. After sketching the scene, locating the evidence, and planning locations for your scanner to be placed, you are now ready to deploy the TLS system. Upon setting up the scanner, you want to make sure your field settings match the scene for adjustments to shiny metals, reflections, glass, and any other conditions such as rain or weather limitations. Point cloud generation is done either after collecting each location scan data and then using software to combine the scans for a complete project, or your system may be able to register the scans as you work through the project. This part of the process will start to show you how your field settings will impact the complete project. As a part of the process, consider storing the raw scans in a secure place as evidence for future discovery requests. So let's talk about some benefits and limitations of 3D scanning in the crime scene reconstruction process. There are advantages of 3D scanning, such as improving accuracy. 3D scanners can get public safety into millimeter accuracy when documenting crime scenes. This is a much needed improvement from previous standards where we're pushing to get a half-inch accuracy. The efficiency of 3D scanning will occur after users get practice with the equipment and establish their deployment procedures. The system will be very efficient and consistent with all operators. Evidence preservation using 3D scanners is a likely element in the crime scene process, and the technology will change some approaches. While there are limitations and challenges associated with the technology, 3D data can preserve where evidence is in the scene. When combining photos with 3D scans, realism can be enhanced. In this area, I see evidence preservation taking an additional route of scanning specific items like guns and knives to make 3D models for court. These 3D replicas can now be displayed in court. This will allow jurors to handle items safely and realistically. So next, let's look at a case study involving 3D scannings that's occurred back in 2009. The murder trial of Ebony Clark in 2009 showed the potential of 3D scanning data in court. The title of the news article referencing this case read, "The 3D laser scan data provides forensic evidence at murder trial." The device used to recreate the 3D modeling image of the crime scene. A Georgia crime scene investigator provided testimony using the visual model to show how the homicide could have occurred. A jury trial stemmed from the homicide of a 21-year-old Georgia woman, included data from a laser scanner to recreate a 3D image of the crime scene for use by District Attorney Joe Mulholland of the South Georgia Judicial Circuit. The data was admitted as evidence when Mulholland offered a visual model. During the murder trial of Antonio Jerome Greenlee in Decatur Superior Court, Greenlee is the suspect. Crime scene investigator Andy Forte of the Thomas County Sheriff's Department provided testimony using software that virtually placed the jury at the crime scene and showed them how the homicide could have occurred. Greenlee was accused of killing 21-year-old Ebony Clark of Bainbridge, Georgia, in August of 2008. Clark was shot and killed during a street altercation between two men. On August 13, the jury found Greenlee not guilty of one of three charges and could not agree on the others, resulting in a mistrial. The software used is a web-enabled panoramic point cloud viewer that allows users to view, pan, zoom, measure, and mark up the point cloud captured by the 3D scanner. The article stated that the scanner allows investigators to photograph, then make millions of measurement points of a crime scene in just a few minutes, thus freezing the scene in time. A data set can be generated within minutes of scanning for briefings, analysis, or as jury exhibits. The jury really liked it, and we had jurors commenting afterwards about how effective it was. So, Mulholland, we not only used the software to support Andy's testimony, but the judge then allowed Andy to show it again during my direct examination of other witnesses as I asked them questions about where they were standing or where the shooter was. The software is basically a high-tech picture. It is not testimony. It is offered as an exhibit and demonstrative evidence. This seemed to play well through the judge. The defense did not object, and I think that they thought the same thing. After the trial, the judge called Mulholland to the bench and commented on the effectiveness of the software and encouraged him to use it again, according to the company. When I refer to the company, that would be the manufacturer of the scanner. Future directions of emerging technologies. So the potential advancements of 3D scanning technology for crime scene reconstruction and developing daily, especially with the integration of other forensic techniques. Training across the country has shown large-scale incidents can be documented with multiple scanners, and regardless of the manufacturer, the data can be registered into one large project for investigation purposes. TLS scanners are also being used in combination with handheld scanners to document smaller areas or even bodies to expedite the body removal from the scene. Currently, the iPhone has made its way into 3D scanning, and applications have been developed to document smaller locations. With the inclusion of photos and 3D data, a scene investigation can continue with bloodstain patterns and shot trajectory for a complete understanding of what occurred at the crime scene. So in conclusion, as we wrap up this episode, today we discussed 3D scanner benefits such as accuracy improvement on crash and crime scenes. We also opened the door for other uses such as blood spatter analysis, crash analysis, bullet trajectory studies, and even evidentiary model creations. We also talked about Ebony Clark case where 3D scanning allowed the jury to see witness perspectives. Ongoing research and development of the scanner's accuracy and integration into further products is necessary. The technology is out there, and the research will support the other use of this technology and the acceptance in court to support crash and crime scene documentation. My final thoughts on this episode and 3D scanning potential impact on forensic investigations are that this industry is growing fast, and public safety must continue supporting and challenging the technology. My final thoughts on this episode and 3D scanning potential impact on forensic investigations are that this industry is growing fast, and public safety must continue supporting and challenging the technology. I am not a proponent that public safety must change just to change. Still, 3D scanning technology can continually improve all forensic applications that need measurement and visual support. These strengths on 3D scanning support crime scene documentation and the ability to provide concepts in court based on evidence found at the crime scene. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Virtual Reality Reconstructionist podcast. I hope you enjoyed learning about the tools and techniques used by professionals in the field of crash reconstruction. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time. The information presented in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered professional or legal advice. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk. The Virtual Reality Reconstructionist podcast makes no representations as to the accuracy and completeness of any information presented in this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe and stay curious.